All right, welcome everybody, welcome everybody. Thank you for your patience. Wanted to give people a few moments to funnel on in. I know the morning ran a little long, but I hope everyone enjoyed some of that great product content. A lot of exciting innovations coming out, so really happy to share that with you guys. My name is James Lee. I'm a Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Appian. I've been with Appian for 6 years. I'm here to talk to you today about Boat, a brand new concept coming out of Gartner that we're really excited to be sharing about here. Real quick, if you have any questions throughout the conference, please go ahead and put them inside of the attendee app there and everything. We will be looking for questions we can answer and answering some of those at the end of the session as well. Now, we'll get to what Boat means in a bit, right? But central foundation or core theme to it is this idea of orchestration. And I know it's a bit on the nose, but sometimes when I'm thinking of a concept like orchestration, my mind does go to an orchestra, right? And what I tend to think about is when you think about an orchestra, it's not a solo performance. You have an assembly of different instruments of different shapes, tonalities, and competencies and everything that need to coordinate and work together in order to accomplish things. So there's something about the, how lockstep they are, how they're playing in the same time, but also the rules they follow, right? Their ability to play in the correct keys, the correct tonation, the correct tempo. And a lot of those types of concepts do have parallels to the complex work that enterprises do and how those two manifest as orchestrations that require some of the same disciplines. And so when we talk about the content for today, we're going to be going through several different concepts here. First of all, what we are seeing when it comes to orchestration is this concept that tech is consolidating. So let's talk about that, what some of the drivers are for enterprise leaders there. Then we're going to get into this concept of Boat. What does that have to do with tech consolidation? What does that have to do with orchestration generally? And what should you understand about choosing the right Boat platform for you? Then I'm going to be very excited to invite Vanessa up from Aviva. She's going to share her story about automation consolidation and what unique advantages Aviva realized by pursuing a more consolidated automation strategy. And then last but not least, we're going to look a bit downrange and talk about the future of orchestration when it comes to concepts like Appian, but just more broadly as well as you're doing your enterprise IT strategies. Now, the first thing to understand when we're talking about the drivers here is that really the problem with large enterprises is not a deficit of technology. There's actually plenty of automation technologies to choose from, plenty you've already procured that you're using inside of your systems. It's the fact that the connectivity and the management of these technologies is adding a lot of drag to actually delivering good business outcomes for the organization. And the fact of the matter here is that when you acquire all these discrete shapes of technology, all these discrete functions, and then you tether it together with everything else in the enterprise, like your systems of record, ITSM, ERP, your networks, your data warehouses and everything, that this leads to this complex web of integration that becomes very difficult to manage and innovate on top of. And the fact of the matter is you don't feel it all the time. There are certain discrete use cases that fit within each of these core systems. And when it fits within the core system or within the automation system, you don't realize nearly as much disadvantage. But when you start having those use cases that span across these systems, that have to touch multiple different things, that's where you face challenges. And the fact of the matter is, especially if you're in this room working with Appian, you have a lot of those shapes of problems. You have a lot of different use cases that go across all of these different systems and everything that need to work together in some coordinated fashion. But I can just say that at face value, but it doesn't really paint the picture. So when you have this kind of disparate automation strategy, what exactly are the challenges you're facing? First thing, and I don't know how many IT audiences in the room, but if you are, you understand that actually managing a project that touches multiple different technologies is really difficult from a development standpoint. You have to work across different competencies, different centers of excellence, different security profiles, and coordinate work in a way that becomes really cumbersome and time-intensive overall versus if you're working within one consolidated experience. There's also a bit of a loss of accountability. This speaks more to the vendor relationship. When the system starts to degrade or break down, there's pointing fingers, right? I think that happened in this system. I think that happened in that system. No, that's an issue with the upstream system. That's an issue with the downstream system. And overall, you're kind of stuck in the middle with the solution not working, trying to navigate this complex vendor landscape in order to see if you can get the solution back up and running. And then, frankly, this could have been more categories, but let's leave it at 3. There's a lot of other issues when you have this disparate strategy. For example, you're paying more on a license fee standpoint, right? If you're an automation vendor and you do one automation technology, you better believe you're going to pass those costs to the client because that's the main driver for your R&D, right? It's going to be slower to actually develop solutions for the reasons we mentioned around the convoluted DevOps, but it also makes it confusing. Have you ever tried to explain a solution to the business and you have to name 6 or 8 different technologies that are involved in making it happen? It really degrades the communication between both sides of the fence and everything, and understanding how you're actually going to change or improve the way work is getting done. And it's not just Appian that has these opinions. Gartner, for example, has identified that 81% of application leaders use up to 6 separate automation tools. I've even heard some CIOs say they use up to 18 separate automation tools. So there's a vast landscape of different technologies they're using. There is no deficit of technology. You have plenty of technology. It's just not working well together. And so what Gartner has been identifying is a new trend, an emergent key technology they call BOAT. And we love the name because, we love SAIL. But overall, what BOAT refers to is business orchestration and automation technologies, right? It's basically this idea that these different automation disciplines, these discrete functions, are actually consolidating. And when you have use cases that go across all of them, you're realizing a differentiated advantage by picking platforms that can support you in all types of ways across automation. And so to give a little bit of a definition, BOAT is a consolidated software platform that delivers enterprise process automation by enabling capabilities including orchestration of business processes, enterprise connectivity, low-code development, and agentic automation. For those of you who've been working with us for years, think how thrilled we were to see that definition come out, right? Sometimes it feels hard to describe what Appian is as a platform, what we do, what our product strategy is guided by. But through independent research and independent analysis, you start to see definitions emerge that there is a concept here that the market is gravitating towards. And where is this coming from? Typically, when we look at these different software markets, whether it's low-code application platforms, business process automation, robotic process automation, or integration platforms as a service, these have been discrete technologies, discrete product strategies that are evaluated separately. And probably everyone in this room has each one of these, right? You've acquired these different technologies and they're part of your technology portfolio. But the fact of the matter is there's a shape of use case, in fact, a lot of shapes of use cases that are spanning across all these different technology patterns. And in fact, when you have use cases that go about that way, seeking platforms that are able to address capabilities and solutions that go across them realizes an advantage. But this is just a kind of 10,000-foot view of it. When you break it down into its constituent elements, it's actually quite mature and complex. All the different capabilities and solutions you might find within a BOAT platform. You have some of the foundational stuff that gets you in the door, right? You have to be able to do RPA. You have to be able to do API integrations. You need to work with unstructured data, manage workflows, do low-code development, process design, and interestingly, event-driven architecture as well. That's coming from that kind of integration background as well. Those are the foundational elements that actually get you in the door. And at the core, working across all those, is business process orchestration. That's a really key element that we'll get into a bit. It's not enough to just have all of this under one logo within a company, and it's not actually able to coordinate and work together in a cohesive way. But beyond that, there's even more differentiation. I'll just pick out a couple, right? You might be looking for things like multi-agent orchestration. I know everyone's working to get that first agent running, but then think about when you have multiple agents actually working together in some collaborative fashion. How are you orchestrating and governing that type of work? What about RAG? Maybe you've heard about capabilities like Appian Smart Search that allows you to kind of use a vector database in order to search similarity type of text across all of your different systems in an enterprise data fabric. And of course, things like AI/ML, right? Being able to do some of those machine learning applications for different discrete document processing use cases or prediction models. All these different types of things can come into the platform, and all of them are buttressed by an enterprise-grade infrastructure. Enterprise-grade is a type of word that gets thrown around all the time. But really, at its core, is that we're doing serious work here, right? This is not a team level or department level task management application or anything. This is the type of stuff that runs the business. And when it's not running, the business has problems. And so you need to have that robust infrastructure to make sure that it's healthy and operational. So with all that in mind, what can you do to think about choosing that right BOAT platform? The thing is that, especially this is something Appian sees all the time, there are certain technologies and certain platforms that every organization has. It's dominant platforms, especially around certain systems of record that have really dominated a particular use case or a particular section of the market and is embedded in all types of organizations. They can come from a CRM background, an ITSM background, different business productivity. And the important thing to realize is that these platforms, they do a great job of checking all the boxes. where you'll go do the RFP, RFI, and you'll see that every single feature, they seem to have it available within their portfolio. But the problem is that a suite is not a boat, right? When you have all of the technologies under one logo, but there is no consolidation of the technologies, they don't share a DevOps, they don't share security, they don't actually share a competency, they don't even share a license agreement, then it's actually as if you had just procured all those technologies separately, even if you were working with the same company. So you don't realize any of the advantages that we actually just discussed. So really, when you're thinking about a boat, it's the unity that's imperative. It's the unification of these different technologies, these different disciplines and everything within one consolidated platform that delivers that differentiated advantage. You heard Greg talk about this in the last platform. I know this picture's really dolled up. I did that myself. I was trying to explain, yes, it's all in the same spot, right? Your RPA, your process models, your integration, your data fabric, your interface. You can click any of those and stay within the exact same stack and work on all these technologies from one discipline, one competency. This actually makes Appian developers quite competent because they aren't strict to a single technology pattern. They can build an RPA bot, they can build an AI agent, they can build an interface, they can build a data fabric. All these different types of things allows them to be much more powerful and efficient in actually bringing together a solution. And overall, Appian's been proud to receive good recognition on its performance in these different markets. Recently, Gartner published their inaugural boat report where Appian was ranked a leader. As well, they renewed their low-code Magic Quadrant over the summer where Appian was ranked a leader as well, which we continue to be proud of because we think when you're exploring boat platforms that agility and ability to change becomes imperative. In addition, we also received from the low-code market a 99% willingness to recommend from the voice of the customer through Gartner Peer Insights. Now, with all that said, I couldn't be happier to invite Vanessa, a software engineer of automation from Aviva, to join on stage to talk more about Aviva's story with their Appian journey.
Good morning. I hope everyone's had a lovely morning so far, enjoyed the food, enjoyed the introduction this morning, and had a great start to their day. Now, my name's Vanessa, like James mentioned. I'm a software engineer working for Aviva, and I started my role just over about 4 or so years ago, joining under our apprenticeship scheme, specialising in software engineering within the automation space. Now, during my time under the scheme, I've worked really, really closely with the Appian technology, and I've been really impressed by the capabilities it's offered us. And I've worked alongside our operational teams, our pension update areas, as well as being fortunate enough to lead a project in terms of our internal investigations. So it's been a really exciting time for myself. And since completing the apprenticeship earlier on this year, I've been invited to join our COE team at Aviva. COE standing for Centre of Excellence, and what we tend to do, we look into new and upcoming technologies or new trends within our existing technologies and try and bring any benefits back into the business to support our operational teams and the way that we supply services to our customers. Now, talking about the business, Aviva, who we are and what we do, I understand there's lots of people in the room today who probably have never heard of us, have come all over the place. So I want to touch on who we are and what we do as a company. Now, Aviva is a major player within the financial and insurance sector, and we serve millions of customers worldwide, primarily within the UK, Canada, and Ireland. And to these customers, we have lots of different types of products, including things all the way from life and health insurances, all the way to our pension products, such as retirement support and planning. Now, Aviva's priority is simple. Like most organisations, we want to impress our customers. So they stay with us longer, purchase more of our products that actually adds value to their everyday lives. And one of the best ways we've noticed at Aviva to ensure this actually happens is to provide them with the best digital customer experiences. Now, that's where automation, the team, and Appian come in. It's not viewed as just a tool, but as a strategic catalyst, one that really enables this priority alongside some of our other Aviva goals. They vary from anything like scaling up in terms of operations, boosting efficiencies, as well as aligning to things like environmental standards. Now, talking about Aviva, we've got a really good established estate. Our infrastructure in terms of Appian, we've been around for quite a while. We've got over 100 or so Appian BPM applications already in place, and they're used and consumed by thousands of our employees on a daily basis. That meant as a team, COE and automation as a platform, we had a really good foundation to try and deepen and expand our automation efforts. So hopefully what you should see on the next slide is a little bit of a demonstration of one of our core applications. I believe it was mentioned this morning by Appian's CEO, and that is called customer management. So let's see if it plays. There we go. Now, customer management is one of Aviva's foundational applications, and it acts as a central hub for handling a wide variety of customer-related demands. It provides all of our ops users and all of our ops teams with a unified interface and a shared framework that supports multiple different demand types. Now, a demand in Aviva's dictionary essentially means when a customer has come to Aviva and made a demand in regards to one of their policies or products. We handle a wide variety of different types of demands, and they can vary anywhere from things like updating customer details, claiming against our pension products, alongside any other service-related demand a customer might make of us. So this application in itself, it's really beneficial. By consolidating all of these two types of features in one place, it really helps streamline our operations, reduces things like duplication and programmable logic. We don't need loads of applications here, there, and everywhere across the business. And it assures a really consistent front of, across our various business units. So the way that the application has been designed, it's been done in such a way to be flexible and scalable, and it really has supported a diverse workflow whilst we maintain a standardized approach to our customer services. So today's focus is how we can further improve this type of application by using RPA integrations. And it's something that the COE team in itself have been really excited about, so we're really happy to be here today to share our story. So, the customer management, it's really beneficial. It streamlines the way we work. But we still noticed quite a few clear gaps in our processes. Things like manual, repetitive tasks that were creating bottlenecks for us and introducing things like risk into the business. And essentially, it was just limiting our ability to scale out across the business. So most companies, your more modern systems would tend to use APIs, we do the same, to try and to connect our services together. But one of the most valuable use cases we've noticed with RPA is trying to bridge the gaps with things like legacy systems, like mainframes. If anyone in the room has ever encountered a mainframe system or has unfortunately had to work with one of these types of technologies, knows they can be quite outdated and just really difficult to operate. They come with a lot of other drawbacks as well. Things like steep learning curves when you're trying to train up your user base. We're used to modern technologies nowadays, so trying to get people actually trained up on these technologies is difficult in itself. That in turn creates a higher risk of human error, which no one wants. And not only that, in terms of an IT infrastructure and estate, it really limits your flexibility when you're trying to develop your estate a bit more. There's a few reasons why Aviva still has these technologies, like a lot of other companies. One of which, like I said before, we have millions of customers. A lot of these customers are held on these systems and their associated databases. So we really need to have some sort of plan before we move them away, and there's too much of a high risk to do so overnight. Another reason, we are a big company. We have acquired other organizations in the past. And when we inherit those companies, we also inherit their systems. And a lot of the time, it's quite messy, and they tend to have those older, outdated systems as well. So that's why, at Aviva, we see RPA as an essential tool. RPA is essential. It's a practical tool, one that quietly works behind the scenes to support our broader integration strategies. It really does allow us to automate interactions with these types of legacy environments, which can reduce things like manual tasks and improves reliability without actually needing to fully rebuild the systems at that point of acquiring them. Not only that, we had a lot of other benefits too. It gave us the chance to actually streamline our processes, reduce things like error rates, and deliver more faster, more consistent outcomes to our customers. We've also got a really good relationship with Appian as a vendor, and by working with Appian, they were able to support us with our transition, creating more smarter, more tailored solutions that actually fit our business needs. And not only that, by listening to what they had to say, we also gave them a bit of feedback about the product, and in line with what we've been saying, they've been improving RPA as time has kind of gone on. So we've got a really good relationship. And ultimately, the last point, why RPA makes sense, it's not about just trying to solve today's challenges, issues that we were facing on a day-to-day process, but it's about trying to build the capability to meet future fluctuating demands, improving our productivity and really trying to free up our people, our employees, so they can focus on value-added tasks while serving our customers. Now, before we go on to a use case today, which is a demand that sits under customer management, I actually want to touch on how we approach this type of technology. Appian RPA was new to us, so what was the thinking behind our actions? So we segregated it into a 6-step phased approach, starting all the way from our discovery and understanding our lasting values from those wins. So the discovery, we analysed our estate and we tried to pinpoint processes that were high in volume, highly rule-based, and often repetitive. These types of processes were ideal candidates for automation, and this could really help us focus on areas where we could improve our operations. From the discovery, we went on to pilot. We were given the chance to actually just get our hands dirty and actually build RPAs across various different business markets. And this just gave us a little bit more control and a little bit more confidence in the value of RPA before actually scaling it out across our operational areas. By understanding the value, we made decisions that were led by data, and we prioritized our processes that we were going to automate on things like transactional volume. How often are they going to occur? How complex are the processes? As well as any other potential for measurable improvements. By understanding that data, we understood how important it is to reduce risk within the business, and not only to any type of risk in this scenario, technology risk. By taking a more phased approach and actually segregating down how we approached RPA, we were able to test out integrations, validate our performance, how quick was RPA working with the volumes that we were expecting, and resolve any issues earlier on with the product. And that's where those conversations with Appian actually came in, that relationship. And this really just built the confidence to scale out with the product without disrupting our core operations. But ultimately, it's not just about the technology. I know we're here to discuss technology today, but it's about how does that technology actually impact our people at Aviva. By taking on the chance to do a pilot, we were able to upskill our teams, build things like internal capability, and just try and embed automation thinking across the business. And that leads us on to our last point. I think this is one of the most important points. By understanding the lasting value of those early wins, we were able to actually demonstrate tangible benefits of RPA, build momentum across the business, and secure a wider stakeholder support for any future initiatives. And again, I just want to repeat, the people are important. We need the people to come back to us in the future for any new initiatives that were going to happen. So that leads us on to one of our demands and one of our use cases today. And this demand is called change of address. And it's actually a use case where we've successfully automated over a mainframe system. So I'll just explain a little bit how it works. It's pretty straightforward. So on day one, a customer submits a request via one of our many incoming routes. Now, that could be a case where the customer has sent us a letter via the post, they have spoken on the phone to an advisor, or it could even be a case where they have made the demand on their online account via our portal. The point is, it doesn't matter how that demand or request has come in, it all gets logged onto customer management, which is in BPM. The specific request pretty much says it in a nutshell in the name, is where the customer has contacted Aviva to update their address on our Aviva systems. Sorry. So once it's logged, it then triggers RPA, which is the second component to the solution, to actually attempt and update and finish the job. So the RPA will go to the associated mainframe system for our policyholder, locate the customer, and attempt to update the address. Now, the reason I say attempt is because of how complicated this system works. It actually takes about 24 hours or so to actually save and sync the data, so we don't know on day one if the request or the demand has been fulfilled or not. Hence the need for a day two demand, RPA demand check. And this is required to validate the completion of the demand. So on day two, the next day, the RPA will return back to mainframe, locate the customer, and actually complete the validation to see if the demand has been fulfilled or not. Now, this use case, it seems really straightforward, but it was marked as a significant milestone for this particular business area. It was their first ever time working with the automation team, and that meant it was their first impression of Appian's capabilities. So we were really fortunate we got to work with a fresh slate in terms of a project or program, introducing RPA and BPM to a business area that has never consumed its capabilities before. But it was important. We needed to give them the best impression so that they would come back to us for more initiatives. Now, what you should hopefully see in the next slide is a little bit of a demonstration of the day one RPA actually doing the job. We weren't expecting RPA to be so efficient, so it actually works really quickly. So we have slowed the video right down. It's still running really fast, so it's just a little bit of a demonstration of how quickly RPA can actually work. So let's see if it plays or not. Nice. So, in terms of the implementation, we were really impressed in a technical sense. By using Appian's interaction capabilities, we were able to automate key steps over our mainframe systems. And this really did ensure that we were accurately modifying all of our customer addresses by identifying and interacting with the correct UI components. Another really valuable aspect to this solution was its ability to validate completion via the data scraping techniques. On day two, the robot went to the mainframe system to check the demand's fulfillment, and this did reduce things like manual checks for the business area and improve our accuracy rates. Now, the outcome of the automation, whether it was successful or not, was returned back to customer management in BPM for further processing. So I'll just explain what I mean by that. In an ideal scenario, we would expect the straight-through processing route. Essentially, this is our happy path. The mainframe system would be double-checked on day two by the RPA. It would find the customer, do the data scraping, and validate if the address has been updated or not. If it has been updated to the new and expected address, we would return that successful path, kind of value back to customer management to go down that successful path, which is essentially our straight-through processing route. And that triggers our customer communications via post. So eventually, the customer would receive a letter via the post. It would say, congratulations, job done, don't need to come back to us. Off you go. Now, we would expect that to happen 100% of the time. I think any business would do. But working in a technical world, we understand things go wrong, which is unfortunate. So we need to ensure if things do go wrong, what do we do? What do we do in that scenario? So we've set up a business exception for manual handling. Now, if the day two, the RPA goes back to the mainframe system, completes that validation, but the validation has come back as false, the address has not been updated for whatever reason. It could be the system's down, it could be the formatting of the data is not quite right. There's numerous reasons in a technical world why something might not be right. That failure would be returned back to customer management in BPM, where an interface would be displayed to our users so they can pick up the job where RPA wasn't able to. So in this scenario, RPA has been great. We've been able to cover all of the paths, happy, sad, or bad, it doesn't matter. And that means no customers now slip through the nets. It might seem like a really simple use case, but it's actually a really powerful demonstration of how Appian RPA can transform our operations, And it just shows how Boat in itself can deliver a seamless experience for all of our users, improving our goals as well, so things like the efficiencies, the accuracy, and our customer services. Now, from a technical sense, we've been really impressed. But in terms of key outcomes, the business has also been really happy with the results as well. We've seen a 97% success rate with the new RPA process. So that means only 3% of all of our instances goes down that manual exception path when a failure occurs. It feels like it's running too perfectly, we've been told from the business. It's fast and it's reliable, and the team barely needs to intervene with the end-to-end process anymore. Also whilst handling around about 500 demands a month since the initial go-live earlier on this year. All of the manual handling as well that actually fell with the operational user has been reduced down from 2 days of manual work to a singular minute in most scenarios, where they just review the demand that's coming in and just press submit to trigger the RPA. This type of consistency really builds trust in the automation world, especially for a team who has never consumed our services before. Another really big win that we've noticed is how smoothly the RPA integrates back with BPM. Everything flows. Whether the demand is successful or not, it's all handled now without any drama. So when the exception occurs, like I said, it's immediately flagged for manual review in BPM. This prevents any errors from slipping through, and it really just ensures that our operational teams are actually focusing on tasks that truly require their attention. And whilst that's happening, all of our successful cases moves on to the next step, triggering our customer communications that has indeed accelerated our turnaround times. It's taken a lot of pressure off our teams. It's really reduced our manual efforts, and they can now add value to their other responsibilities in their roles. Plus, this type of solution, which is pretty straightforward and simple, can be scalable. It can be reused across any other business market at Aviva. And again, it's just a great example how automation and RPA doesn't just replace tasks, but actually improves the whole end-to-end process around them. Not only that, by using some of Appian's Boat capabilities, our users have noticed as well that they're gaining a great experience from aesthetically pleasing designs, such as the Appian interfaces, whilst all of our back-end configurations, like mainframe, are still being managed and further processed using Appian RPA. So we've been really excited by this, and this is only a very small scenario of one of the many use cases that we've done. And that kind of does, unfortunately, bring me to a bit of a close. So I just want to touch on where do we think we'll be going next. Now, at Aviva, we've been really impressed by the Appian RPA capabilities. And as our estate continues to grow, we'll keep using RPA to really bridge those integration gaps that we're facing with these legacy systems. And that really does ensure that we're delivering consistent values to our customers. RPA in itself plays a really good vital role in maintaining a seamless experience for our customers alongside our BPM applications. And it really does serve as a transitional solution whilst we implement long-term strategic integrations into our estate. We're delighted to use Appian as one of our core automation technologies, and we're always keen to improve some of our services even more. So we've got quite a few future plans coming up in terms of Boat, and we're trying to understand more about the Boat capabilities that Appian can offer us, with things like investigate into the AI skills and how that could potentially be embedded into an application like customer management, and further enhance the way our users work and the way that they kind of return customer services to outside of Aviva. Now, unfortunately, I am out of time. I would like to say a massive thank you for Appian over the years, Appian supporting us over the years with the way that we've kind of transitioned into a more modern estate. And a massive thank you again to James and the team for helping me out over the last few weeks. It's been a great experience, so thank you very much. There we go. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I will say, she said simple process a lot, but that mainframe, I don't think I'd want to have to do that job, right? So it's really good that we find automation. I really appreciate Vanessa coming to share her story. It's incredible that we got through this whole morning, that whole product display of agents and document processing, adaptive experiences, without even talking about RPA, right? This is what happens when you have this consolidated automation platform. All the tools you need to automate any shape or size of work you can find within the platform. The problem that Vanessa was facing is a problem that I'm sure a lot of you are facing as well, is when you have islands, they address these problems in silos. Your systems of record, like your CRM, your ERP, your ITSM, they can manage the data really well around that core use case, and some of the simple processes around those use cases as well. When it comes to configuring them and extending them, you run into a lot of challenges, and a lot of times the automation strategy is a bit all over the place. But then you have automation tools which are great, like leading RPA providers, leading IDP providers, but when it comes to connecting those into a larger workflow or even managing the larger workflow, like even providing a user experience to attach to that workflow, you have to look to other tools to really help you out there. And then you have low-code application building, which allows you to build these great user experiences, these simple workflows, connect with systems of record, but they're really hollowed out as far as managing complex data, managing complex process, or doing the automation itself. If I were to try to synthesize this, if I was to try to boil down, what I would say is none of these tools were made to handle complex process problems. And that's exactly what you came here to learn about, what you came here to find out how Appian can help you with. These complex, mission-critical processes that span across departments, span across technologies, that you need to find some way to run in an efficient and competitive manner. That's how Appian sees modern applications. In 2025, modern applications are orchestrations. They're a connection of different actors across departments, across technologies, across disciplines, across time even, in order to handle complex, long-lived workflows. To do a modern application, might have lost my clicker battery. Okay. Watch it trigger 5 times and then rewind. Okay, in order to do a complex process, right, you need process modeling, right? It was really great that Vanessa had a chance to show one of her process models. That's one permutation. You can make any types of permutations of processes. But the important thing is that this isn't for simple processes. Any technology has a simple process builder. This is for when you need to handle complex, long-lived processes with a lot of different variants, a lot of different technologies, a lot of complexity in the work, not because we like making your life harder, but you already know how hard your life is, right? You know how difficult it is for this work to get done, so you need a robust tool set in order to manage that. But it's not just process alone, right? Appian, with its heritage as a process company, the weakness we would easily incur is around data, right? How does a process company actually get its hands on data? It's going to have to do pretty complex things. So we took an investment, made a big R&D bet in order to build 10 years ago the Appian Data Service, which is now the foundation of our data fabric, allowing you to collect and connect data across your entire enterprise into one ontology without moving it and without migrating it from its source system. And if this was great before, it's even better now as we get into the agentic era. So just a couple things looking ahead, right? Boat has a long future. Let's not forget about Boat, right? It's just getting started, just had its inaugural report. We're expecting to see a lot more come out of this kind of discipline in this market category. Going from the, its past and process-centric and task-centric type of applications, now getting into these AI-embedded consolidated platforms that we're starting to experience today, all the way into the future. When you look at innovations that you see Appian and other companies making around agentic AI and AI agents, how are you going to manage that agentic workforce across systems, across technologies, and across departments? And one thing I'll leave you with, it's a teaser for later on. There's another great breakout I'll share in the last slide. But agentic orchestration and governance, this is going to be that next frontier, that next challenge that businesses are going to have to deal with. Once people get their sea legs building these agents in all these different spaces and places, they're going to have to figure out some type of way to manage, control, and govern it so they can do safe, effective, and reliable work, just the way you try to make sure your people do the same there. Some last takeaways. Assess consolidating your tools. I guarantee you I'm not talking to anyone in the audience who has a deficit of automation technology, but think about, for certain shapes of processes, if you need to be having it ping pong across all these different vendors and different technologies in order to deliver a complete solution, or do you have consolidated platforms within your portfolio that can manage these use cases more elegantly and more effectively? Evaluate your licensing strategies. You might already have an RPA solution. you might be paying too much for it, right? You might actually find some advantage if one of your existing platforms has RPA and you're already paying its licenses to find a more cost-effective automation strategy than what you're doing in a discrete way. And then, of course, keep an eye on the agentic future. I know people are working to try and get that first agent working, but it's coming, right? You're going to find the disciplines, you're going to find the rigor, the technology will catch up to you and everything, and then you're going to have a proliferation of agents that you're going to need sophisticated ways to manage, ensuring you get those effective outcomes. So some sessions I would like to plug. We have a great session on agentic orchestration. Klaus, who you saw on stage, will be joining Jake Rank, who you also saw on stage, again for that breakout. I think it's going to be great. It's going to dig into agents in a really powerful way. And then Greg Aldana, who you also saw on stage, is going to be joined by Mark Ansting to talk about agility layer. This is a great spin on Bo when it's talking more about how this does modernization, end-to-one application consolidation, so that instead of forcing you to migrate or get off of your systems like Vanessa was experiencing there, you can actually just overlay on top of the legacy system, providing you a modern innovation platform to extend the efficacy of your business. Some continued reading that you can check out there. We definitely encourage you to check out the reports, everything. There's some great literature coming out about BOAT as a concept overall. And with that, I'll keep those up for a second. I know we are over time, but if there are any questions, I don't think I saw any come in on the iPad, but we do have a mic runner. Please feel free to raise your hand, and we can run you the mic. Happy to take your question. One question up here up front. Oh, sir, if you could keep your hand up, make sure they find you.
I just want to ask about that 2035 vision. What do you see as the biggest obstacle to getting to that autonomous sort of agentic AI vision for 2035?
Sure, there's a lot of answers that I could give. Let me try to unpack that a bit. Right now, agents are good at doing more discrete tasks, but that autonomous agent vision really talks about large, collaborative, unstructured shapes of work. I'll give you one example. Let's say that something had a 98% chance of getting something right, and you did that 20 times in a row. The whole thing has less than a 50% chance of getting it right, right? So if you're trying to have an agent boil the ocean and do a really large, complex set of work, you're not going to find an effective outcome yet, until OpenAI and Anthropic come out with the next best model, right? Now, beyond that, even if it could do it effectively, this group, this audience requires enterprise-grade control and governance, right? You need to ensure that it's not messing with your underlying systems, messing with your data integrity, sending out poor communications out to your audiences, and adhering to policies. I'll give you one example I heard from an insurance company at some point where they had approved generative AI to assist their claims workers with evaluating claims. Well, some claim workers started asking it, can I just approve or deny this claim? That causes ethical problems, right? That can cause issues from an auditory standpoint, or an audit standpoint, that you need to ensure that you can govern, apply policies, apply guardrails to ensure that it's doing effective and safe work, right? So all these different types of maturities are being defined in real time, right, by technology vendors. And then, of course, there's a lagging indicator in enterprise adoption because you need to make sure you're confident too before you start putting it in your systems. But I think the future can be quite impressive if you let your creativity get away, because you can start thinking about situations where agents are existing in a lot of different systems with some kind of way to collaborate with each other in an unstructured manner, just like people do. If I want to work with Vanessa, I can send her an email and we can work together even though we're not at the same company. You could imagine a similar paradigm with agents, but you're going to need a lot more structure and policy than exists today to make that happen effectively. It's a great question. Any other questions? All right. Well, with that, thank you for staying a bit over. I really appreciate your time and attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Be sure to check out those sessions, check out the reports, and thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.